When the last hope died, the Earth fell armed from the sky. Even when humanity fought its wars, argued its politics, or filled the space between stars with radio chatter, there had always been a background hum of voices, signals, and questions. Curiosity was humanity's oldest habit. They asked the universe if anyone was out there, and for centuries the universe did not answer. When it finally did, the answer was not cruel. It was simply distant. The civilizations of the galaxy were old, careful, and tired. They had learned long ago that helping young species often cost more than it gave back. When humans reached the stars, hopeful and clumsy, they were noticed, catalogued, and quietly dismissed. Earth was marked as stable but unimportant, ambitious but not exceptional. Humanity did not know this at first. They believed effort mattered. The last hope was not a weapon or a fleet. It was a message. It took 80 years to prepare. Hundreds of cultures on Earth agreed on a single voice, a single language of meaning rather than words. Scientists, artists, historians, and diplomats worked together to shape it. The message was simple but honest. It said who humans were, what they feared, what they hoped to become, and why they wished to join the greater community of stars. The ship that carried the message was small. It was not armored. It carried no soldiers. Its power came from patience and precision, not strength. When it entered interstellar space, humanity watched in silence. Years passed, then decades. The answer came at last, transmitted through a network older than Earth's first cities. It was brief, polite, final. Humanity was acknowledged. Humanity was understood. Humanity was denied. No threats were made. No insults were given. The message simply explained that Earth would not be granted protection, membership, or assistance. The galaxy was full. Stability required limits. Humanity would be allowed to exist, but only as long as it did not interfere with established systems. When the message ended, something strange happened on Earth. There were no riots. There was no screaming in the streets, no collapse of governments, no sudden rush toward despair. The silence that followed was deeper than grief. It was thoughtful. For the first time in recorded history, the entire planet shared the same pause. People went to work. Children went to school. Ships launched and landed as usual. The news talked, argued, speculated, and moved on. On the surface, nothing had changed. But below the noise of daily life, Earth began to listen to itself. Humanity had always survived by adapting. When fire burned forests, they learned to control it. When oceans blocked their paths, they crossed them. When space itself seemed unreachable, they stepped into it anyway. The denial from the galaxy was not a death sentence. It was a boundary, and humans had never respected boundaries for long. Deep beneath the oceans, facilities that had once studied tectonics shifted their purpose. In deserts where solar arrays stretched to the horizon, new calculations replaced old forecasts. Orbital platforms adjusted their positions by margins so small no outsider would notice. Not yet, the work did not begin with excitement. It began with calm agreement. If Earth could not rely on the galaxy, then Earth would rely on itself. The idea did not come from one person or one nation. It emerged slowly, independently, in thousands of minds. Engineers, physicists, climate scientists, and philosophers reached the same conclusion from different directions. Earth was more than a home. It was mass, energy, momentum, and structure. It was a body, and bodies could move. At first, the changes were theoretical. Models ran on quantum processors buried under mountains. Simulations tested stresses no planet had ever endured. The biggest problem was not energy, but balance. A planet was not a ship. It could not turn sharply or accelerate quickly without tearing itself apart. So humans thought bigger and slower. They did not design engines. They designed systems. Heat management was the first challenge. Oceans were mapped not as geography, but as circulation. Entire currents were redirected over decades, guided by invisible fields and carefully placed structures. The planet's core was studied not as a hazard, but as a partner. Humanity learned how to whisper to tectonic forces instead of fighting them. Nothing exploded. Nothing burned. Progress came in millimeters, then centimeters, then kilometers. Above Earth, astronomers from distant civilizations continued their observations. They noted slight orbital anomalies but wrote them off as natural variants. Young systems were messy. Nothing about Earth suggested danger. Human transmissions grew fewer, not because humanity had fallen silent, but because it had learned to speak inward. Communication networks became more efficient, more focused. Redundancy replaced spectacle. The loud voices faded and the steady ones remained. On Earth, generations passed without knowing the full truth. Children learned history as always, but the future was taught differently. Survival was not framed as fear. It was framed as responsibility. Humanity was not preparing for war. It was preparing for independence. In the sky, stars slowly changed their apparent positions. The shift was so small that only the most precise instruments could see it. Earth was no longer exactly where it should have been. Its orbit had stretched, its path smoothed into something intentional. Gravity itself was being negotiated carefully and respectfully. When the first alien observatory sent a formal inquiry, it was met with silence. Not refusal, silence. That silence spread. Messages sent to Earth went unanswered, not because they were ignored, but because humanity had nothing to say yet. Explanations could wait. Proof could not. Inside the planet, systems synchronized. The atmosphere was reinforced, not with barriers, but with balance. Magnetic fields were strengthened and reshaped, guided rather than forced. Cities adapted quietly, buildings redesigned over decades to handle stresses their ancestors never imagined. People felt changes without understanding them. Gravity felt the same, but steadier. Storms became rarer, more predictable. Earth itself seemed calmer, as if holding its breath. The last hope had not died in despair. It had dissolved into resolve. Humanity did not ask the galaxy for forgiveness or permission. They did not announce their plans. They worked. Far away, ancient species debated the meaning of the data they were collecting. Some argued Earth was destabilizing itself and would soon collapse. Others suspected a long-term engineering project, but dismissed the scale as impossible. No civilization had ever moved its homeworld. The idea was considered inefficient, wasteful, dangerous. Only humans would attempt it, not out of pride but necessity. Decades turned into centuries. Earth's speed increased by fractions of fractions, measured against cosmic constants. The sun's pull weakened, not because it was resisted, but because Earth politely stepped away. The planet did not flee. It drifted, guided by calculations that accounted for millions of years into the future. When the first undeniable proof arrived, it shook the quiet confidence of the galaxy. Earth had altered the gravitational balance of a neighboring system without firing a weapon, without emitting a burst of energy that could be called aggressive. Trade routes shifted. Long stable orbits required adjustment. Ancient maps became slightly wrong. Still, Earth said nothing. Humanity watched the stars as they had always done, but now the stars were moving in response. On the surface, life continued. People fell in love, they grew old, they argued about art and science and meaning. Most never saw the vast machinery beneath their feet or the careful choreography of forces surrounding their world. They did not need to. Humanity had always trusted that the future was something built quietly by those who cared enough to think beyond their own lifetimes. The galaxy began to feel something it had not experienced in a long time. Uncertainty. Earth was no longer a point on a chart. It was a variable. Sensors detected a steady acceleration, smooth and controlled. No debris fields, no thermal spikes, just motion. Purposeful, patient motion. When an emergency council was called among the older civilizations, the question was no longer whether humans had been denied unfairly. The question was what a species becomes when its last hope is taken away, and it chooses not to beg, not to fight, but to carry its future with it. As Earth continued its silent journey, one truth became impossible to ignore. Humanity had not been waiting for a place in the galaxy. They had been preparing to rearrange it. The galaxy did not panic all at once. At first, there were debates, slow and careful, held in chambers where time was measured in centuries instead of days. Data was reviewed again and again. Observations were checked, rechecked, and argued over. The idea that a young species had altered the motion of its own planet felt unreasonable. Impossible things were often used as excuses for errors, but the numbers did not lie. Earth was moving, not drifting the way dead worlds drifted, pulled by gravity without thought. This motion had direction, it had restraint, it had patience. The planet was not rushing anywhere, it was choosing where not to be. As Earth continued its journey, the silence around it became louder than any broadcast. Human signals did not vanish entirely, but they changed. Old entertainment channels faded. Public networks went quiet. What remained were deep, structured transmissions between Earth and its machines, between the planet and itself. Humanity had turned inward, but not in fear. On Earth, people still lived normal lives. Cities adjusted slowly as gravity gradients became smoother and more controlled. Transportation systems shifted without announcement. Buildings adapted through designs that felt natural rather than dramatic. Life became more stable, not less. Children grew up under skies that looked almost the same as their parents remembered. Stars were slightly different, but change had always been part of the night. Humans accepted it easily. What they did not see were the layers of systems beneath their feet, coordinating across continents and oceans. Artificial intelligence did not rule Earth, but it listened to it. Every mountain, every sea, every shifting plate was part of a larger conversation. Humanity had learned to guide rather than command. They did not treat the planet as a tool. They treated it as a partner. Far away, the older civilizations began to feel pressure, not from attack, but from presence. Earth's mass influenced trade routes and long-term planning. Gravitational models had to be rewritten. Some systems adjusted peacefully. Others complained, demanding explanations from a world that refused to speak. When a coalition probe approached Earth's path, it did not encounter defenses. No weapons powered up. No warnings were sent. Instead, the probe's instruments recorded something unexpected. Earth was stabilizing nearby space. Radiation levels were lower than predicted. Microdebris was being gently redirected. Chaotic fields calmed as the planet passed. Earth was not disrupting the galaxy. It was smoothing it. The realization unsettled many. Humanity had not built a moving fortress. They had built a moving environment. As centuries passed, Earth became a reference point. Navigation systems adjusted their calculations around it. Young species quietly altered migration plans to pass closer, finding safer travel corridors. No permission was asked. Earth did not respond, but it did not object either. The galaxy slowly learned that Earth's silence was not hostility, it was confidence. Eventually, a message was sent that humans did answer. It was not a declaration or a demand. It was a simple explanation, shared without pride or accusation. Humanity explained that they had sought cooperation and been denied. They accepted that choice. Earth was now self-sustaining, self-defending, and self-directed. They did not ask for recognition. They offered coexistence. The response took time. Ancient minds moved slowly, but they were not foolish. The older civilizations began to understand what humanity represented. Humans were not conquerors. They did not seek control. They sought continuity. A species willing to move its entire world rather than take another's space was not a threat in the usual sense. It was something rarer. It was reliable. Earth's journey continued, guided by long-term goals measured in thousands of years. The planet positioned itself near unstable regions of space, not to dominate them, but to anchor them. Systems once considered too dangerous for settlement began to stabilize under Earth's quiet influence. Life followed, not through invasion, but through invitation. Humanity opened limited corridors, allowing shared research, cultural exchange, and mutual learning. No military alliances were formed. No borders were enforced beyond respect for motion and balance. Earth asked only one thing from those who came close: do not rush. Do not take more than you need. Think long. Many found this difficult. Some could not adapt and left. Others stayed and learned. Over time, Earth became something new in the galaxy's awareness. Not a capital, not an empire, a constant, a reminder that power did not have to announce itself to matter. Humanity changed as well. Knowing their home could move gave humans a different view of permanence. Nations softened. Conflicts lost urgency. When the future was measured in centuries of shared effort, short-term gains seemed small. People still disagreed. They still struggled. But they argued with the knowledge that they were passengers on a world that required cooperation to survive. The last hope had not been a single plan or moment. It had been the willingness to accept rejection without surrender. When historians from distant worlds later tried to define the moment humanity became significant, they did not choose the launch of the first engine or the shift of Earth's orbit. They chose the silence after denial, when humans decided not to shout back. Earth continued to travel, carrying oceans, forests, cities, and memories across the dark. It did not seek to replace stars or rule space. It simply existed where it chose, steady and undeniable. The galaxy adjusted around it, slowly and carefully. And in that adjustment, a new understanding formed. Humanity was not special because it was strongest, fastest, or oldest. Humanity was special because when the universe said no, they did not break, beg, or burn. They moved forward, together. Carrying their home with them, Earth had been moving for so long that most humans no longer thought of it as strange. Children grew up knowing that their world traveled. It was taught gently, like weather or seasons. The planet moved the way rivers flowed, slowly and with purpose. It was not something to fear, it was something to care for. The galaxy, however, was still learning how to think about Earth. For ancient civilizations, history was built on fixed points. Stars, systems, and borders changed very slowly, if at all. Power came from control over space that did not move. Earth challenged that idea simply by continuing onward, calm and steady. As centuries passed, Earth became surrounded by stories. Some worlds called it the walking cradle, others called it the silent anchor. To a few it was a warning, to many more it was hope. Not because Earth promised safety, but because it proved something important. A future did not have to be granted, it could be built. Humanity remained careful, they did not grow faster than they could manage. Population was balanced with resources. Expansion was thoughtful, never rushed. New cities were grown rather than constructed, shaped with the planet's motion in mind. Nothing on Earth was designed to resist change. Everything was designed to move with it. This way of thinking spread slowly. Visitors who stayed long enough began to change how they planned their own societies. Long-term thinking replaced constant urgency. Cooperation became practical rather than idealistic. When Earth was nearby, conflicts tended to pause not because humans demanded peace, but because fighting felt pointless beside something so patient. The planet itself continued its work. Gravitational disturbances were eased wherever Earth passed. Chaotic regions calmed. Radiation storms softened. Earth did not fix the galaxy, but it made space more forgiving. Scientists from many species studied the effect, trying to understand how a single moving world could influence so much without force. The answer was simple and difficult at the same time. Earth was consistent. It did not change direction suddenly. It did not react emotionally. Its path was planned thousands of years ahead, adjusted only when necessary. That kind of stability was rare in a universe shaped by ambition and fear. Over time, the oldest civilizations began to realize something uncomfortable. They were no longer the most reliable ones. They had chosen safety through control. Humanity had chosen safety through commitment. The difference mattered. One council older than most stars humans had named sent a final question to Earth. It was not a demand. It was not a test. It was honest. Why did humanity not turn back? Why not stop, settle, claim a safe place, and rule it? The answer came after a long pause. Because stopping would mean choosing an end. Humans explained that movement was not escape. It was responsibility. As long as Earth moved, humanity had to care for it together. No single group could claim ownership. No generation could act alone. The future was always present, always approaching. That was the point. The message spread far and wide. Some civilizations rejected it. They preferred certainty. They preferred walls and borders and fixed power. Earth did not argue with them. It simply continued on its path. Others listened. New kinds of alliances formed, not based on territory, but on timing. Worlds coordinated movements, energy use, and development cycles with Earth's long-term plans. Not because Earth led them, but because aligning with patience reduced risk. Humanity became known not as rulers, but as planners. On Earth, culture reflected this change. Stories focused less on endings and more on journeys. Heroes were remembered for what they preserved, not what they defeated. Even language shifted, with fewer words for conquest and more for balance. People still dreamed. They still reached for the unknown. But they did so knowing that their dreams rested on a moving foundation that required care. One day, far in the future, Earth approached a region of space that had been empty for longer than memory. Stars that were young and unstable. Many species avoided the area, fearing collapse and unpredictability. Earth slowed. Not because it was afraid, but because it was listening. The planet adjusted its path slightly, offering stability without intrusion. Over generations, the region began to change. New systems formed with gentler orbits. Radiation levels dropped. The space became livable. Life followed again. This time it was different. There were no capitals, no empires. Settlements were temporary by design, built to adapt or move away if needed. Earth did not stay forever. It never did. It passed through, left space better than it found it, and continued on. As humanity looked back across the path they had traveled, they did not see conquest or loss. They saw effort. Every generation had added something small, a calculation improved, a system refined, a mistake corrected. No single person could claim credit. That too was intentional. The last hope long ago had died quietly. In its place, something stronger had grown, not belief in rescue, belief in continuity. The galaxy slowly accepted this new truth. Humanity was not temporary, neither was Earth. They were not waiting for permission, approval, or praise. They were moving forward, carrying a living world, shaping space through patience rather than force. And as long as Earth continued its calm, steady journey, the universe would have to make room. Not because humans demanded it, but because they endured. For humans, years still mattered. Birthdays were celebrated, seasons were tracked. Lives began and ended with meaning and memory. But for Earth itself, time had become something broader. The planet moved through space with a patience that stretched beyond any single generation. Humanity grew into that patience. People no longer asked where Earth was going in the short term. The question had changed. Now they asked how Earth should arrive. Every decision was made with that question in mind. Cities were designed to last, but also to let go. Technology focused on repair, balance, and understanding rather than speed. Progress did not slow, but it deepened. The galaxy watched. At first, it had been curiosity. Then concern, then respect. Now something close to trust. Earth had passed through many regions of space, leaving quiet changes behind. Systems once unstable became predictable. Dangerous areas became passable, not because Earth forced order, but because it carried it. Other species began to do something unusual. They planned around Earth's path, not as followers, not as subjects, but as neighbors in time. They timed migrations, research cycles, and even cultural events to moments when Earth would be nearby. The moving world became a shared reference, not a center of power, but a shared rhythm. Humanity noticed this and responded carefully. They never claimed leadership. They never spoke as if Earth belonged to them alone. When visitors asked who ruled the planet, humans gave the same answer every time. No one, and everyone. Earth was not owned. It was maintained. That idea confused some and inspired others. Among the oldest civilizations, debates continued. Some still believed humanity was inefficient, wasting effort on movement instead of control. Others quietly admitted that their own systems, once considered perfect, had grown fragile with age. Fixed things broke, moving things adapted. One ancient species, known for its long memory and slow change, sent scholars to live on Earth for several generations. They studied human behavior, not technology. What they found surprised them. Humans were not united by agreement. They were united by process. They argued constantly. They disagreed about art, science, philosophy, and purpose. But when it came to the planet itself, there was a shared understanding. Earth came first, not above people, but alongside them. Care for the world was not a belief, it was a habit. Children learned it the same way they learned language. You took care of what carried you. You planned not just for yourself, but for those who would come after. You did not rush decisions that would affect centuries. Mistakes still happened. Sometimes systems failed. Sometimes predictions were wrong. When that happened, humans did not hide it. They adjusted. They learned. They recorded what went wrong so it would not be repeated. Earth continued to move. Eventually, it reached a region of space where the galaxy itself seemed thin. Stars were fewer, distances were greater, signals took longer to cross. It was quiet in a way even humans found unsettling. Earth slowed again, not to stop but to consider. Long-range instruments detected patterns in the dark, not life, not yet, but potential. Clouds of matter shaped by forces that could one day form stars. The process would take millions of years. Humans could not wait that long, but Earth could. The decision was not made quickly. It took generations of discussion, modeling, and ethical debate. Was it right to influence something so young? Was presence interference? Or was patience a form of care? In the end, humanity chose the smallest possible action. Earth adjusted its path just enough to stabilize the region, nothing more. No construction, no colonization. Just quiet influence like a hand steadying a fragile object. Then Earth moved on. Millions of years later, long after the humans who made the choice were gone, stars would form more gently there. Humanity would not be there to see it. That was fine. Meaning they had learned did not require witnesses. As Earth traveled on, human culture continued to evolve. Art became more focused on long arcs instead of single moments. Music was written to be played across generations, each adding something small. Stories were told not about victories, but about endurance. Heroes were remembered for holding things together when no one was watching. The galaxy slowly changed its language too. Where once it spoke of dominance and defense, it began to speak of sustainability and alignment. Earth was not the cause of this shift, but it was proof that another way worked. Some civilizations tried to copy humanity's methods and failed. They rushed. They forced change. They treated their worlds as machines rather than living systems. Humans did not criticize them. They waited. Eventually, a few learned. Others did not. Earth did not stop for either. Far in the future, humanity faced its own test. A natural limit, not of resources, but of biology. Human bodies, even extended by technology, could only live so long. Memories faded. Knowledge risked being lost between generations. The solution was not immortality. It was continuity. Humans improved how knowledge was passed, not just stored. Skills were taught through experience, not just data. Wisdom was shared through stories, mentorship, and long-term responsibility. The idea was simple. No one needed to know everything. Everyone needed to know enough to care. Earth itself became the greatest teacher. Its motion reminded humans that nothing stayed still, and that was not a flaw. It was a condition of life. When new species encountered humanity for the first time, they often asked the same question. Why keep moving? Humans answered gently. Because stopping means deciding that this moment is enough forever, and forever is too large a promise. As Earth continued its journey, it passed beyond the influence of many old powers. Some civilizations faded into history, their fixed worlds unable to adapt to change. Others survived by learning from the moving planet, even if they never admitted it openly. Earth never judged them, it simply existed. In the end, there was no final destination, no place where Earth stopped and declared success. That had never been the goal. The goal was to continue, to move without destroying, to influence without controlling, to exist without needing permission. The last hope had once been an answer from the galaxy. When that answer was no, humanity learned something important. Hope was not something given. It was something practiced, and as Earth carried humanity onward through dark and light, chaos and calm, that practice continued. Quietly,